Prepare for the onslaught. I'm sorry they're going to play. It's going to be fun. I'm stepping away.
So, I figured today we'd talk about hacking PJL. And for those of you who know what PJL is, great. For those of you that don't, well, it's the printer job language. It's created by HP and is supported by some 40-odd manufacturers, and it's basically the way printer jobs are set up, handled, and prepared, when they're sent off by the driver to the printer so that it prints your document. Keep in mind that everything I am doing here is completely supported by their spec. It's all documented. Well, 95% of it's documented. Their documentation kind of blows. It's about a decade old. However, all of that being said, this should be fun. Quick bit about me. For those of you that know me, I'm sorry. For you that don't, I'm sorry. There's a slide of some of the other stuff I've done later in the presentation, and we'll get to it there. I don't really think it's kind of important dealing with what we're doing here. So, that being said, first slide. Shut up! So, as I said, PJL stands for Printer Job Language. It's used to set up for a printer for given print job, internal variables, PCL, PostScript, all that kind of stuff. It's older than hell. The documents that I started reading when I was working on this stuff are from '97. And Iron Geek's got a wonderful, wonderful site that'll link back to some of the older attacks and things like that. I'll get into a little bit more of that later. But, so this stuff has been around forever. Just keep that in mind. So, your basic enterprise HP printer. And, stop for a second, those of you who work in the big enterprise environments, and think about how many of these you have on your network. Just think about that for a second. So you've got your admin page on 80 and your HTTPS page on 443. Most of them have SNMP support enabled because nobody bothers to turn that off, regardless of whether it's being used or not. But that doesn't matter. We've got a backdoor for that. So your enterprise HPs have disks, and this is where it starts getting interesting. They either have a physical disk. You'll find it sometimes in the MFPs, which are the multifunction printers, your printer, scanner, fax, copier, the thing the CEO likes to keep on his desk. Or they have a RAM disk, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a RAM disk. And these are to support uploading and downloading of font files. However, I skipped ahead myself, but regardless, to give a quick nod back to the people who have gone this path before me, we've got JavaVM, which basically gave you the ability to upload your own Java VM into the printer and take control over it. I've been told it really doesn't work anymore. I don't have the capability of testing it. Hijacker, once again, excellent tool. I remember having loads of fun with this in high school. That was Phenolit group. Only works with one device, and it crashes really often. There's also the wonderful SNMP get it, the printer admin. Iron Geek's website covers this excellent. And screw this thing, I'm just going to yell. So anyways, let's skip ahead. So there are several fun PJL commands.
The people on the streamcast probably can't hear you anymore.
I hate microphones. Alright, fine, we'll talk about microphone. So anyways, there are several fun PJL commands. FS upload, which stands for file system upload, which actually doesn't do what you think it does because it's actually uploading from the printer to you, not you to the printer. And FS download is, once again, backwards. Directory list, FS delete, ready message, this is how we go and update the LCD screens. Some of the SNMP commands over PJL, even if SNMP is disabled. Now this is where it gets interesting. That is exactly what you think it is. That is an SNMP backdoor. This is documented by HP. I have talked to them about this. They readily admit that this is a feature. I have no idea why. Because when you think about it, you go, okay, great. So I don't want SNMP on my devices. I'm not using it. So I go into the admin page and I check the box and I say I don't want to use this. And yet I can go do this. I can sit there and especially encode their MIB objects, send commands over 9100 unauthenticated, and get commands back, which proves really useful when I start talking about some of the other stuff I'm doing. Really, really kind of scary. There is a document out there on the internet that will explain all of this to you. It's marked confidential from HP Barcelona, and if you're decent with Google, you can go find it on some Russian FTP servers. This is from what, way back in 2001 when I spoke to HP about this. They admitted that they knew it existed and they didn't really care. So, why all of this is awesome? It's unauthenticated, widely supported. You can't really turn it off. Your large MFPs, you know, the ones that CEO's got on his desk, you know, you'll see 40 gig hard drives, 80 gig hard drives, 60 gig hard drives. It really depends on the model. The smaller network printers will give you 20 to 30 megs, although some of the newer ones will give you 200 to 300 megs. Just keep that in mind. So that your space adds up quickly. When you're storing stuff on the RAM disk, if I remotely reboot the device, which I can do, all your forensic evidence goes away. So how do we secure these devices? Well, they've got 3 passwords. You've got your web admin password, you've got your telnet password, they're typically the same, depending on how old the device is, and you've got your PJL password for your quote-unquote secure jobs. And this PJL password comes into a little bit play later. The PJL password is set on any one of the disks, and I'm mumbling here, so hang on a second here. Apologize, I have a bit of a hangover at this point. Yeah. So anyways, you can actually, to give you an example of a secure job, you can take the PJL password, you can physically lock a disk, and supposedly it's in a read-only mode. There's a recent vulnerability that HP just came out and admitted to that's directory transversal on printers. Their response was set the PJL password and lock the disks, and this is no longer an issue. Except for the fact that the PJL password is horribly weak. 1 to 65,535 numeric only. So, the software that I will be releasing here at some point in the near future, probably the next month or so, has a password cracker. And the password cracker will sit there and, you know, just constantly try. There's no timeouts, there's no logging, there's nothing, until it figures out what it wants, the correct password. This gets even more fun when you start aggregating across multiple devices. And this gets back into where I was talking about. Think of how many of these devices you've got on your network. So, you actually bother to set these things up correctly, you bother to secure them and things like that. To set the PJL password, there's not an easy way to do it. HP typically recommends their administration tool, which means that there's a good chance the password's going to be the same on all the devices. Now, because I can only connect to one device at a time, I can only test one password at a time. But if I was to say connect to 30 different devices at a time, and test passwords across 30 different devices, assuming that your admins are lazy, and all the passwords are the same, suddenly the password space gets much, much smaller. You can do it in about 4 minutes. So, this is once again a slide talking about what I was talking about earlier, the disk lock. The disk lock is really interesting because HP's own documentation says that if you lock the disk, you can only lock disk 0. Most of the really big hard drives where I've been playing around with, you can have disks 1, 2, sometimes even 3. So you can only lock out the first disk, and that's their acceptable solution. It's kind of sad, really. So what can we do with this? After sitting down and playing with all of this, I decided to write a couple of tools. So I've got PrintFS. PrintFS is exactly what it sounds like. It is a printer file system tool. It will go out and it will scan an entire network. It will find all the printers that are supported, and then aggregate it all into a giant, effectively, cloud storage device. And you get this nice little upload and download screen, and you say, put this file here, and that file is then thrown up into the ether. And then you can delete it off your disk, wander around, come back, and get it later. We'll handle that next slide. PrintJet, once again, wonderful support tool. This handles the password cracking. This handles a bunch of other fun things that I'll show you later. So anyways, getting into PrintFS. So we're doing distributed storage across all the printers in a given environment. PrintFS support is determined by the scanning of the printer via the PFS scanner. Now, PFS scanner, to go off on a slight tangent here, is something I'm particularly proud of because I had a ridiculously amount of fun time writing it. It's polymorphic. So not only does it have multiple commands to determine the information it needs, because I'm doing a mix of normal PJL commands plus the SNMP pass-through commands, they're run in random order, there are random sleeps. You could sit there and run it a million times against the same device and you will never get PCAPs that look the same. So, really fun to write. It was written in such a way to be a horrible pain in the ass to write rules for. There's random payload padding. You'll never get packets that look the same. So getting back to PrintFS, we're using the RAM disk to store. Works on any supported printer via the local network or over the internet. So if you were to use something like the Shodan scanner and printers that are out on the internet, and say 26 devices across 5 countries will give you a gig of storage. All files that are uploaded automatically get compressed, then they're encrypted with a random key. So every file, anytime you upload a file, it's encrypted with a random key, and then it gets a random file name. So even if somebody was to stumble upon this, it just looks like garbage. There's a local file table that's curated on the disk, and that's where I store the keys, the names, and everything else like that. So when you go out to retrieve these files, it comes back down the same way it went up. There's SHA hashing and everything else. To handle the fact that we're storing in RAM disks and the chance that someone might reboot a device, I actually upload every file twice. So I'll store it on one printer and I'll store it on another printer. And because of the way the code is written, it may get one name on one printer and it'll get a completely different name and encryption key on a different printer. So there's no way of being able to sit there and go, okay, this and this are the same object. The PrintJet, once again, support tool for PrintFS. It's the user interface for the PJL password cracker. Mass control panel lock and unlock, really funny to do. Mass RAM disk lock, unlock. Mass LCD update, which I have another script that I'll be releasing that does that. This is a list of known supported models. This is from me scanning various devices and determining that yes, they are indeed supported. There are probably many others that will support these. These are just the ones that I've had access to play with. 4000 series, 5000 series, I think there's 9000 in there. So it's a wide enough range that you more than likely have these devices on your network.
Did I hear you say you use Shodan to find them on the internet also?
Yes, you can use Shodan to find them on the internet. You can use Google to find them on the internet. Typically what I do is I take the web administration page and I pick a couple of things out of URL and I start Googling for other objects that have that in the URL. And you'll pull these devices back. So, other fun stuff with PJL. Printer DOS attacks. One of the things I noticed when I was playing with this is that when you open up a connection to the printer and don't close it, the printer won't do anything. It just sits there and waits. So it would be very easy to lock them all open so that nobody can print. Using the SNMP pass-through with the reboot, you could throw them into reboot loops all day long. Mouse printer checks with the LCD. You could do social engineering, which would be really funny, and I might have done at my office. Animated LCD messages, which actually we will do one of those here real quick. Stay. So, imagine this on every printer in your environment. Yes, that is rafflecopters dropping roller skaters. So I think that is an excellent way to show admins that, hey, you've got an issue. All multi-threaded, and basically you send it all out, and it goes and does its thing. And the nice thing is the way this is written, every command, it actually sets up and closes down a new TCP connection, which really sucks because there's all sorts of traffic. But on the other hand, people can actually still print while this is going on.
Now, sending it animated, are you having to constantly send something new, updated?
Yeah, I'm constantly updating
Okay.
in a circle. It's just a loop. So, anyways.
Mine was a bomb countdown.
Yep, exact same idea. So, yeah, once again, slide about me. The Excel, textile, member of unallocated space. We're a drinking space with a hacking problem. I do a lot of wireless, and I'm kind of branching out from it. Do security contracting, you can email me. I don't have Twitter, I don't believe in it. I think it's a mass hallucination. And at this point, I'm sure there are questions. I hope. Yes?
How do you identify if it's a RAM disk or a regular disk?
It'll actually tell you. There are several commands, and I can more than happy to go into it if you're really curious. But when I scan a device, what happens is, what I do is I actually create a random chunk of data. It goes out, it just creates a huge block of alphanumeric. And I say, okay, give me a random amount of that. This is my file. And I do a SHA hash on it, and I say, okay, tell me about your file system. Okay, I know you have X amount of space. If you return to that to me, tell me what your model number is. Okay, great, you've returned that to me. Tell me what your serial number is. And this is how I store everything in the file system. I base it off the device's serial number, because that's guaranteed to be unique. So anyways, goes ahead, compresses it, uploads it, re-downloads it, uncompresses it, does a SHA hash on it to make sure that nothing's getting modified in transit, I'm not corrupting data, and at that point it says, okay, now this is a supported device, and it adds it to the table. Along that way, we do random sleeps, you get the random payloads of the commands. There's all sorts of really funny stuff to do. I actually have PCAPs if anyone wants to see it. I would love for somebody to come up with a way to write rules for this, because I've made this so dangerous that I can't stop it now. And it's proving to be a little problematic. I'm kind of kicking myself for having so much fun. Other questions?
So you said you're using the built-in hard drives on these machines to store files. How big did you say those were?
It really depends on the device. The MFPs you get really lucky with because they have built-in hard drives. So you'll get 40, 50, 60 gigs. In the test network where I was playing, I had 26 devices and had 78 gigs of storage, which is pretty sizable.
Have you looked at your ability to execute code and other stuff like that?
I didn't find anything that would give me the ability to execute code on these things. ChaVM was the last known thing that could do that. It's not to say that it can't be fixed and work again, but it really wasn't within the scope of what I was trying to do. When I originally got into this, I was trying to steal the documents that people were sending to printers. That's about the only thing HP did right. Once I realized I could upload, download files, and I went, well, what happens if I add this all together? And the fact that I can effectively sit on a network, collect everyone's files as they're flying across the wire, store them out in plain sight on all their printers. So even if they're scanning for rogue services and things like that, they're not going to find, the FTP server where I'm keeping all my nasty stuff. And then effectively crypt it all, upload it up to the internet, leave, go to some other internet connection, pull it back down, and I type the nice panic command, and poof, it all goes away.
Have you thought about combining this with email and fax scan capabilities to deliver PDFs that aren't PDFs?
You could do that. Some of the other older HP devices, there was a vulnerability, I think most of the 4000 series have it, where you could actually upload documents to their web server, which is really funny for running client-side attacks. You just post it right off the printers. So yeah, in terms of what you're asking, I think it would be perfectly possible. If I was to rewrite this again, I'd actually use Fuse and actually give you a mountable device in dev that would be a whole bunch of printers.
Does it work on, you found it to work on any non-HP printers? Did other manufacturers support PJL?
No. And it's not to say that it's not possible, it's just that I haven't tried very hard. So it's entirely possible to do it. There are certain commands that I need to have supported. The model number I don't generally care about. It's just kind of one of those informational things. That's how I generate the nice list of all the known supported things. If I can't get back the serial number and I can't get back to the disk information, I assume the device is not supported. Now it's interesting, I found in scanning, and I never did quite get my timing right, but there are times where I will scan a device and it'll come back and say I'm not supported. And then I'll scan it again and it will be. So there are some limitations within the programming inside the devices that you kind of run into sometimes, but all in all, I kind of stuck with HP because I had the best success with them, and being it's their thing, they have implemented the entire subset versus only bits and pieces of it.
Is there a legitimate reason to lock the disk? And if you do that, is it about printing or just about
When you lock the disk, you're actually effectively trying to, or removing the ability to upload font files. I haven't actually found anyone who's ever done it. It's kind of one of those supported features, but nobody ever uses it. It was kind of comical after reading HP's response to that vulnerability that came out for the directory transversal. And they're like, well, just lock the disk with the PJL password. And I started laughing because it's horrible. Why would you even suggest that? It's horribly broken. This is really, really old technology that they keep sticking in new devices. I'm really kind of interested to see what their new web-enabled printers look like, because I'm willing to bet that they're probably vulnerable to this. And the sad part is I even contacted them and I said, hey, I'll work with you for free to fix this. I knew some people that worked for them, and they actually put me in touch with the actual team who's in charge of this stuff. As soon as they figured out that I wasn't releasing this at DEF CON, they didn't care anymore. And so, yeah, I was really kind of embittered after that point. Other questions?
So when you release this DEF CON, and finally get their attention, will that be the first time that people have public consumption of it, or are you planning to release it prior?
I submitted this talk for ShmooCon, and it'll probably be a little bit longer, as I've ripped through this way faster than expected. And unless you guys really want me to... What?
You want the tool now?
Yeah.
You've been teasing us for 6 months.
And I've been working on this for the better part of a year, so bite me.
So you may release that shmook.
Yes, the plan is if the talk at Shmoo is accepted, I will be releasing this at ShmooCon.
Hold on a second. So you've been working on something the better part of a year that's actually a supported feature with full documentation.
It's not really full documentation.
Present that at Hackathon.
Shut up.
Sit your punk ass down.
Shut up.
You might want to repeat that online so people know.
Is it Mac supported?
Only Jen's in there.
It's Python, so yes, smartass. All of this code is written in Python, so you can pretty much run it on anything.
You mentioned redundancies in the system to make sure you don't store files all in one location. Do you take these into account like subnets to make sure that you're not putting everything in the same office so that the power goes out?
No. I ran into, and I will readily admit, the particular algorithm that I'm using for that is garbage. So basically what it does is it says, okay, give me a list of all the printers, show me how much storage they have. Great, sort to the smallest one. And does the file that you want to store fit in that one? No, go to the next one. Does it fit in that one? Great, store it there. Give me the next one. Does it fit in that one? Great, store it there. And so there are a lot of problems with doing that. I'm releasing this as a proof of concept. This is not meant to be a full-fledged tool. I don't have much intention to support it once it's out there. The idea is just to prove that this exists, these devices are vulnerable, and maybe we should actually start looking at these things. When I started doing this, I was asked, they said, hey, how do we secure these devices from this? The only logical conclusion that I've been able to come up with is put these devices in their own subnet, wall it off, and only talk to a print server. Route everything through the print server because that's going to stop me from doing this.
So you wouldn't be opposed to someone weaponizing it?
If you've got ideas, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about them.
Why do you need to brute force? Isn't the OE and PDD set key both impacts the state?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
PJL key, like the PJL scripting and passwords and like that. Why do you need it?
So there are reset variables that you can trigger, but the problem is those are technically treated as secure commands, so you have to know the password to call them. Otherwise, it just ignores you. So
Before you upload your little file browser thing?
you only need to brute force when the actual device has been locked. Most of them are not locked at all. So that's simply there is just as a subset to test things out, and on the off chance that they actually did figure out how to lock the disks, I've already got a pill for that to fight back. Writing the password scanner, or the password cracker for it was actually a lot of fun. It'll sit there and rip through about 30 threads. All the threads are aware of every other thread. So as soon as one thread, tests its password space, finds one, tells all the other ones.
You kind of alluded to it, but are you able to steal print jobs from people? Like someone sends a print job to that printer, spools up on that printer, can you steal that job and redirect it to someone else or store it?
No. That was the goal when I went into this. Now, this new directory transversal that came out, I just haven't had time to play with, so it's entirely possible. Basically, what it gets into is they have a write-only directory for every print job, and I can't view what's in it. But if I could get in there, yes, we could do that.
So what's the other storage for, if you think it includes?
It is normally for uploading font files.
Repeat the question.
Sorry.
She asked what the other storage was for, if it's not for print jobs. Yep,
They have other storage just for font files, which not.
that's the only thing I've been able to come up with. All the documentation, now keep in mind, the documentation I've got is very old, but
So don't ask me questions that weren't documented.
Dave, I wasn't going to show this, but I think we've got a Wikipedia entry that we need to show you. Involving some Four Loko and a donkey show. So anyways. Yes. Do we have any other questions? Am I spacing out? Am I missing something? Yes, good. All right, I'll get the hell off stage.